Welcome back guys to yet another video. Now in this video I will be installing a bigger throttle body. In order for me to do so I have to remove this entire intake, the actual throttle body, so I can bore out this intake to match the bore of the throttle body. So let's go ahead and start removing all of this here and see how it goes. I was able to remove everything, the air box, all the hoses, the throttle and the intake itself. I had to remove the entire thing because one of the bolts is rounded off and the actual wire isn't going to come out, so I did have to remove the wire, which I probably, if it does break, I'll probably get a new one, but if it doesn't, I'll try to salvage this one. Now I'm gonna go back to the garage, try fixing the rounded off bolt, and see if I can actually separate these two. Now before I go and get all the hardware for this piece, let's compare the old one versus the new one. Now all of these sensors right here, they all match. I already plugged them in, they work just fine. The only thing that doesn't match is these lines right here. These ones, this one, these two lines, and these two lines, they will match. There's also one big line right here, and one small one right here. This one right here, that is for the fuel. That's for the evap system, but that's actually not a big deal because I can just run it over here on this port right here. I blocked it off. This was the brake booster line, so that's not a problem. Oops. And this big one, I'm pretty sure that's the PCV valve, because the previous one, it had the same thing really on this side, so it might actually work. Yeah, looking at it, that might be the PCV valve. The only problem is going to be is actually seeing if all of these hoses will connect, or if I'm going to have to use some of my own and make it work that way. That's really the only thing that's concerning me. But I'll get to it when I'll get to it. Overall, so far I am really happy with how this is turning out. I'm not really sure if they do sell bigger throttle bodies for the 1TZ engine. I really haven't looked into it, but I do wish, well, I do want to clean this up as well. I do want to paint it like a nice silver color, but I'm not sure how easy it would be to clean up all these tight crevices and stuff. I will, however, clean up the actual insides of this and just not leave it black. But overall, let's see what we can make out of it. And here we are, I'm in my garage. I've separated the intake and the throttle by welding on the socket on the actual nut, and then I was able to get it off. And comparing these two, this is the old one. I'm not able to get off the throttle cable, so I'm most likely gonna have to get a new one, which is not a big deal, considering this is like, what, I don't know, the life of the car or something. So it is worth it, but, you know, whatever. And this is the new one. Now when I got this, I thought this intake or this throttle would be much bigger than this one. But measuring it, it's like only 3 millimeters bigger, which isn't that much. Like, it's pretty surprising that it's not that big. But again, for something that I got for free, I might as well do it. Now comparing this one and this throttle and the intake manifold, I'm going to have to remove these pieces here and grind away some material just to not have a bottleneck. I'm also going to need to get bigger bolts for these two, and then this will fit nicely. So once I get some bolts, a new throttle cable, and then it should be going just fine. Alright, after some sanding, filing, and all that good stuff, I removed the fins and as well as sanded off the actual runner to match this port right here. I've as well removed these two studs since I will be needing to use longer bolts. So that is good. Now before I go ahead and get new bolts, get new everything, I need to rinse this intake out just so I don't get any plastic shavings in my engine bay. It's definitely not a good thing to have in your engine bay, so I'll wash this thoroughly and let's see how good this will turn out after a nice wash. Alright, so after giving it a quick wash, I've dried it off, as well as applied some heat to the insides of it just to smooth it out much more. And it did turn out pretty nice. As you can see, it definitely matches this new throttle body, which is really good. So this throttle body is from a 1.8 liter 1Z engine, versus this one is a 1.5 liter. So it's definitely a small difference. Will I see any difference? Maybe. Maybe I will, maybe not. I'm not really sure, so I'll have to test that out. The next step is just going to get new hardware so I can bolt this on, as well as getting new throttle cable. Also, I'm just going to refurbish this right here since it is pretty rusty. Just going to remove all the rust and paint it black so it looks much nicer. And let's see how this goes. After running to the hardware store, I got the correct size bolts. I was well removed the alternator just because so I can clean it up. So I can remove this bolt right there that's broken off, and so I can remove the belt. And the belt is in pretty bad shape, so I'll be replacing those. I'll be fixing this up right here, and once all of that done, I can install the throttle body and be on my way. I did order a new throttle cable, so that should be in maybe in 2 to 3 days. But let's get all of this sorted and see how this goes. So after test fitting it in the car and the bolts worked really nicely, there's a few issues that arrived with this setup right here. When I started the car, it did have trouble running, which means that there was a huge leak, like a vacuum leak. So I replaced the fuel line hose, the evap hose I mean, and it didn't fix it. It still worked as it is. So then I got my flashlight and shined it inside. And then I found out that this piece right here is exposed. This is the idle control pass, and then another piece, it was slightly exposed right here. Now as you can see, I've sealed this in, so there's no way that should leak. And I need to also seal this in right here, and that would hopefully stop the leak. Now this isn't just like some sealant, this is actually like if it dries up, it's like what's that called? PB weld. It's like that. It's pretty hard, it's not gonna fall apart and stuff like that. I will be getting a new intake hopefully soonish. Not exactly this type of intake, but this is just getting by, really. And it does work nicely. Everything works. I just still need them waiting for the throttle cable. Everything works nicely. And now it's just I gotta seal up the other piece and see how that turns out. And after bolting up the throttle to the intake, you can see right there, you see that little gap right here? That's for the idle control valve bypass. As you can see, it is exposed small, and it's really a small leak, but I'm just gonna fill that in so I don't get any issues. And the other one, let me see if I can find it. Yep, right here. As you can see, right there, this was exposed, so I just sealed that in slightly. And now, hopefully, once it all dries and I'll test it out tomorrow, there will be no leaks left. The other thing that I've actually done with this throttle body is removed the coolant lines. Now, someone already bypassed the coolant bypass, so it's like there's no point in keeping it. So I just chopped them down, grinded them down, and left it as is. Just so there's two hoses that aren't obvious of what they actually do, or just confuse people. Now, according to this one right here, this is for the PCV valve. Now, there's one right here, and this is where it connects actually, but I do want to get another hose and reroute it onto here, just to make it a much more cleaner setup. But overall, I mean, it's really nice. The bracket as well just bolts up nicely. I'm not sure what this is. I might be able to remove it. Maybe. I'm not really sure. But I'll see what's the use of this. Now, it is pretty dark in here. You can probably see that small flashing light, which I'm just blocking with my hand. Now, it's actually for a really good reason. So what I've done is turn off the lights and inserted the flashlight inside the throttle body so I can observe if there are any holes or even minuscule holes inside the intake. And what I did find some. This is these two holes right here. They're for the evap and then for the PVC valve, so that's nothing to worry about. As you can see, that's where the throttle body sits, and I'm just observing where it meets up. And I did find small, hold on, let me just turn on the lights. Those are not the lights. Alright, now I did find small, although not major, I had found some issues. So as you can see right here, that's where the major one was. That's a big one. There's also a tiny, oops, you can't see, a tiny one right there. And like it's pretty much throughout the whole intake. As you can see some of there. Now, could I have made a gasket that sits perfectly with this throttle body? I definitely could. But I don't know, where do you get that type of gasket? How do you even get it, pretty much? So that's really the limiting factor. I was just not sure about how to use it. But the other thing, even if I did use the gasket, the way it was sealed, it would probably still leak just tiny bit. This is definitely not a temporary solution. If I do have to take out the throttle body, I'm probably going to have to smash it off to break those seals and then have to reseal the whole thing once more, which isn't a big deal since I can't just remove the intake with the throttle body. It's not that huge of a deal. To me, really. I mean, it's just, 5 bolts versus 3 bolts. It's not really that huge of a deal. But it's just a good thing since I'll be able to finally install it. And once all this dries up, I will install it back in the car, turn it on, and see if it has any more problems. So I'll see you guys in the morning. And as you can see, I am back at the car. Now I did reinstall everything, the intake, the throttle, the hoses, and stuff like that, and as well as the new belt. I couldn't get it off because, well, I couldn't move the alternator, but now new belts, new everything. I did start the car up. It runs perfectly now. It doesn't hesitate, it doesn't stall, none of that business. I've also removed this little piece that I was not sure if I wanted to keep. This just holds the wiring, so off it came. As you can see, it definitely runs high when you start it, but then it starts to get lower and lower. I'm pretty sure that will go away as the car runs and starts a few more times. But overall, I am really happy. I still have to wait for the actual throttle cable to come in. The other thing that I noticed is that it's the sound itself. It definitely has a much deeper sound, which is surprising because, I mean, it isn't that huge of a difference, and yet it's still a difference nonetheless. Then I'll just take it out for a drive once the cable comes in and give my feedback. Well, after installing the cable and having slight issues with it, I did install it. The car works. The car does pull slightly harder, which is a good thing. For a plus 3mm throttle body, it's definitely, worth it for me. Was it worth all the trouble? For me, yes, but for some others, probably not. There is a slight issue with where the cable is slightly short, so I'm either gonna have to fix it with the throttle body, just move the pin slightly to the left, and that hopefully will fix the high idle issue. But overall, I'm happy with the results. The car drives, the car brakes good, the car accelerates good, and stuff like that, which is really good. I'm just really happy that I got this done. So yeah. Now that everything has absolutely gone fantastic, besides a couple of small issues, I do wonder if I can order the Corolla throttle cable and that will fix the high idle issue. The only issue that I'm having is just the throttle body is slightly open. And if I go inside the engine bay and move it, it will definitely go back to its normal idle. I'm definitely gonna live with it for a while until I actually save up and get the Corolla cable. But overall, the car does pull much harder. Well, not much harder, slightly harder, which is a good thing for something that I got for free. It was definitely a headache since things didn't go away, you know, rust, all that issues. But either way, everything is fixed, everything's working perfectly, and that's it. It's really nice. But for now, I will conclude this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.